Good morning. We're now on the third video segment of Lesson 8. We've been talking about moral education, different models of moral education. Last video we talked about the Maimonidean Aristotelian model, which focuses on character education, which is acquired through routine practice of moral acts. We're going to look at a very, very different model today, which is rooted in the philosophy of John Dewey and is practiced by Devorah Steinmetz in the Beit Rabban school. Now let's look at our major text. It's a text by Daniel Pekarsky. It's called Vision at Work, the Theory and Practice of Beit Rabban, and it's chapter 8. It deals with the school Beit Rabban. Maybe I'll just note about the connection between Pekarsky and Beit Rabban. Daniel Pekarsky is, and we'll talk slightly about his biography shortly, was working on vision. He encountered the school Beit Rabban, and he thought this was a perfect example of a school that could highlight the importance of vision. And he was particularly impressed by the principal, Devorah Steinmetz, who founded the school. Let's talk a little about Pekarsky and Steinmetz, the two main figures in this video. Daniel Pekarsky is a professor emeritus in education at University of Wisconsin. As I mentioned, one of his areas is vision, particularly in Jewish education. He's done work within the context of the Mandela Institute. Devorah Steinmetz is the founder of Beit Rabban. She was the first principal. She left. Currently she's a Talmud scholar at Drisha Institute. Now the book Vision at Work deals with the concrete case of Beit Rabban. Pekarsky, in a very innovative and accessible manner, tries to talk about vision, the role of vision in Beit Rabban. And in one chapter he talks about the approach of Devorah Steinmetz in terms of moral education. And it's a very different model than what we saw in the last video segment. It's more about moral reasoning. It's more about trying to get the students to deliberate and reflect about what's the best way to increase goodness. And it's less about repetitive moral behavior. Let's look at a quote from Pekarsky's account. My impression was that she, in other words, the teacher, whose name is Nurit, had succeeded in formulating the situation as a problem that needed thoughtful attention, and the kids, having appreciated the character of the problem, embarked on a thoughtful process of inquiry that culminated thanks to their creative ideas and to Nurit's skillfully introduced input in an imaginative and sensible solution. What do we see from this quote? That moral education is about students coming to recognize a situation as problematic, deliberating about it, and trying to come up with, obviously, the educational input of the teacher, but the teacher in a non-dominating and authoritative way, reflecting and deliberating on the problem and coming up with a solution, experimenting with the solution, and as a result, becoming better at practical reasoning as part of moral thought. Now, just as we saw in Maimonides that there's a particular philosophic source that Maimonides is grounded in, also in terms of Devorah's thought, and Pekarsky points this out, her approach is rooted in the moral philosophy and educational philosophy of John Dewey. Dewey's perhaps the most important educational theorist of the 20th century, if not in the Western tradition per se. He created an approach to moral education which parallels Devorah's approach. And Dewey talks about, firstly, problematic situations. This isn't just about moral education, it's about education in general, that students come to see situations as problematic, as needing a solution, and he rejects supreme fixed moral principles. In other words, when we talk about morality, we don't have set fixed moral solutions, but we have to think about it ourselves, and therefore there's the importance of deliberation, inquiry, and experimentation. So this Deweyan model, this Deweyan-Steinmetz model, is clearly contrasts with the Aristotelian Maimonidean model. If Aristotle and Maimonides are concerned about character education, virtues and traits that are acquired through repetitive practice of particular moral actions that we know previously are valued, Dewey and Steinmetz talk about developing practical moral reasoning through a group deliberation which includes inquiry and experimentation, which is obviously guided by the teacher but not dominated by him or her. So we have two very, very prominent models which demand, and this is the crucial point in terms of your visions, demand different types of educational practices. And when you're thinking about what you want to accomplish and how you want to accomplish it in terms of moral behavior, these are two models that you have to dialogue with. I'll just end by emphasizing that both of these models are very prominent in current educational discourse. I'll note the work of Licona, Educating for Character, How Our Schools Can Teach Respect and Responsibility, was published in 1991 and is very, very influential, particularly in the Bush administration. And it's based on an Aristotelian character educational model. And obviously, Dewey model from the time that he developed it till today influences education, particularly progressive education. I'll just note the book, Dewey's School, the Laboratory School of the University of Chicago. So these are two models, and in next week we'll look at a third, a Buberian model, which obviously contrasts with the first two. Thank you very much.